Welcome back to the Entertainment Roundup. I'm J77. I'm doing a little bit of freestyle, basically talking about stuff how I have seen on the papers, stuff that I'm not too shocked about. There's an article that I have right now with me with the Daily News. The first time I bought the Daily News ever since they attempted to raise their prices again, but I bought it for two reasons. One, the headlines, and two, some of the pictures here that we'll be talking about. That is also entertainment worthy because they are celebrating 95 years as being New York hometown papers. So I got a couple of stuff I want to talk about Eminem and his family in a good light, and as well as my general feelings of the World Cup, which has taken New York by storm within these last few weeks. So I wanted to get that out the way. But first, I wanted to apologize for having a long gap with the Entertainment Roundup. I have been stricken with a very bad cold, which I actually had a relapse just a few days ago. Was rushed into the emergency room. Wasn't too serious, thank goodness, but it was something that brought my concern, especially when you're barfing up saliva, water, and food that you have recently eaten. So they basically did some checkout, did a chest X-ray, everything came out fine. But they did say I have been having some tightenings in my chest. They gave me some nice little blue pills, as well as a couple of medication, pretty much like this, an inhaler, which I always thought that only asthma patients were allowed to use, but obviously it helps open up your lungs so it suppresses the cough. Some Q-tussin, not Robitussin, Q-tussin, which is a chest congestion, which has actually helped me a little bit, and a nasal spray. So obviously, they're being a little extra cautious. And if you can hear my voice right now, even though it does sound like I'm congested, it's actually better than not having a voice at all. When I was sick the last time, I couldn't even talk on the microphone, and I was burning up to the point where I could even type. So I am now getting back into that, as well as hopefully trying to resolve this cough, because let me tell you something, it's one thing that you cough, okay, that's part of the cold, but there was like a stream of symptoms because I had the stuffy nose, and that stuffy nose was fine, it didn't bother me as much, but after a couple of sneezes, I figured I'd rest it out and I'll be good. But once I got up, I started coughing. I said, alright, well, this cough is probably going to be a little bit, it's not a big deal, I'll just get some Halls and I'll be alright. I took the Halls and threw that up, and that's when I knew something was wrong. And being that this happened in my job, that didn't give me some fair signals. I listen to my body a lot when it comes to being sick. I was going to leave, but because the person was going to be by himself, because we don't exactly get along with the other worker that we work with. She didn't want to be alone. She wanted to be with somebody she was more comfortable with. I decided to stay a little while, and I got a couple of sales. For those who don't know, I am a ticket agent for a tour bus company in New York. I decided to stay. That was my biggest mistake, because no sooner did the cough stop, it came right back, and it was chronic. I mean, it was like you don't know what's going on. It's just like your body wanted to cough, to the point where I started throwing up my breakfast. So I decided, okay, I gotta go back home. I gotta go. Something's wrong. And easy to say. I went to the office. They didn't make a big deal of it. They took my machine. I wanted to use the restroom, but then it started happening again. And I realized something. If this happened at a train, it's going to bring a lot of attention that's unwarranted, and God forbid if I throw up on the train. So I told them to call for a EMT. I wanted to go to the emergency room. I had to. This could be something that's not seriously, or it could be something dangerous. Either way, I need to get checked out. I need to get medicated. I need to make sure I fight this before it gets worse. And they did. And even with that, as I was speaking, it was still happening. EMT came in. They sent me to the paramedics. I didn't go on a stretcher. Went to paramedics, and needless to say, it worked it fine. But they have air conditioning on there that didn't make anything any better either. And I know why they have the ambulance on that temperature, because of the fact is that germs do not like cold. It kills the germs, it basically, or at least reduce it as much as possible. But it made me cough like a bad habit, and the EMT was looking at me and said, "Oh shoot!" And I was on the verge of throwing up there. And he gave me a pan so I could throw up, and luckily it was just only spitting water and saliva, and then they just said, this is not going on. But from his face, you can tell that he's seen this before, but he knew I was not, something was up. I went to the emergency room, which actually has been split to two divisions, fast track, I believe they call it, and they went to that one, and I was seen pretty fairly. It was actually pretty good. I didn't stay no longer than 2 hours. An hour to get checked out, making sure everything else. They also put me in a special breathing solution, which actually worked it well. But needless to say, I flew up there too. So I requested for an X-ray. Everything worked out fine. But they told me it was some kind of a spasm. It had a name for it. Don't remember the name, but it was something that was going on because they must have saw that my chest was tightened for reasons I do not know, but probably because of the cold. And they was trying to cough, and then my system was trying to get it out of me as soon as possible. So they gave me my 3 solution steps: some cough congestion, nasal spray, and an inhaler that I got to use when needed. So that was my Saturday adventure, which was yesterday, and I spent 6 minutes talking about it. But that's just the thing I was dealing with within the past month, and I decided from now on to just simply not get too stressed out and to change my diet, because this is not a coincidence. This has not been a good year for me with colds, and after a while you have to ask yourself, is there something you're doing to prevent this from becoming a further nuisance? So I decided it'd be probably best to relax more, eat more healthier, check my diet as much as possible, see what foods affect me, but also the working environment in general. Because let's be honest, I work with a lot of people, and needless to say, you get many germs that you never thought could possibly have. And these people are coming from different parts of the country, different parts of the states, and most importantly, just the environment around you. There's no coincidence since they changed my route. I was at Rockefeller for a while, then I was at 34th Street, and I was working fine. But once I get to Columbus Circle, I know that's when it started really happening. So it must be something that's there, a reaction that I'm dealing with, that's causing this. So I'm deciding to go visit my doctor, get a jelly checkup, explain what's happening, explain what my body's reacting to, and see if that has been the case. So that way I know ahead of time, don't go there or don't eat this you may have a reaction to. It's always safe to be prepared for that. So in case you're wondering why there's been a gap, that's one of the main reasons. Health-wise comes first. End of story. Let's deal with the story that I want to talk about. And I got to do this very carefully because my throat isn't 100% for me to be screaming. But for those who are sports fans, and definitely those who are Brooklyn Nets fans, you are not happy with the front page of your daily news. And it says here, what the buck? Rookie coach loses Brooklyn power play. And then the reason why it says what the buck is because if you go to page 6, it says that all of a sudden Jason Kidd wants to coach the Milwaukee Bucks soon. And I saw this front page and I just couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe this guy had the guts to do this. And I said, it got to be a logical explanation. It got to be something that flows into this. But it says here on the front page that Jason Kidd doesn't just look bad here. He looks like a bad guy. The real coach who has gotten so far ahead of himself after 1 year. I said that for a reason because that's how many years he's been coaching as an NBA coach, that he now thinks he is the king of pro basketball. Now, this is done by Mike Lupica, and this is why I got to make sure I don't scream and yell too much. And he's been the Daily News top sports writer for a long, long time. And there are some things that he said that I agree, some things he said I don't agree, but I can't even dispute this. All right. Now, before I go on, as a player, I respect Jason Kidd a lot. He's done a lot for New Jersey and didn't get enough credit while he was playing at the New Jersey Nets. He didn't, and that belongs because the fan base for New Jersey Nets basketball was poor. We got to keep it real. One of the reasons why they moved from New Jersey was because they didn't have a fan base. He's in Brooklyn now. The team is in Brooklyn now. Have a chance to do good things because the fan base will be pretty much different. Sure, you have new people from New Jersey coming over, but you're going to also have the newer fans who wants to support Brooklyn that will pretty much establish themselves. So they have a chance to establish themselves, and with the right owner, which they do have. I think the owner they have is a good owner. I really do. And with the right staff, this team could really go places. Will they overtake the Knicks? I don't think so. It may have to take years and decades before that happened. But in this case, it is something that can happen if the team is successful. Being successful means winning championships, being a top contender every year, really, really being so good that even though the Knicks are the first team that ever came over here, uh, they are no longer the talk of the town. They're number one. They're not the number one basketball team anymore because there's a new dog in town. And keep this in mind here about something here. The New York Yankees was never New York's first town until 20 years later. This was always been for at least until 1995, 96. This was always National League country, and that's largely because we had two teams in the National League. We had the Dodgers, we had the Giants. Those are the two teams that everybody always think about. The Yankees was actually third banana, even when it was winning championships. People always thought about the Giants and Dodgers at that time. The biggest rivalry was always between the Giants and not the Giants and the Dodgers, the Yankees and the Dodgers, but it was a National League town. When those two teams left, now those teams, the fans didn't just jump on the Yankee bandwagon. They did not do that. When the Mets came to town, most of the Dodgers, most of the Giants fans in New York became Mets fans. And then it became a National League town again. Right up until the Yankees had that dynasty again, and that's when it became Yankee country. And this is how long it took the Yankees to finally get that, even with their winning. This is what they're going to have to endure. They're going to have to really do something so dramatic that you will have no choice but to recognize them as, yeah, they're the new team they're the new face of New York, but they're not there yet. Jason Kidd could have been a part of that, at least for the stint, but now, if this is what is true, and I'm going to read the article here, I don't want him near this team. If you're going to act like that, all right, let me just read here. So this is how a good story goes this fast. Again, this is from Mike Lupica, guys, of the New York Daily News. I'm reading here. Jason Kidd, who played the Nets into two straight NBA Finals when they were still the New Jersey, retired as a player just 1 year ago and almost immediately became their coach. Only now comes different kinds of stories about kids wanting to be the one to run the basketball operations with the Nets, or at least have a lot more to say about the personnel than he does, even at the expense of Billy King, the general manager who hired Kidd in the first place. It all started to sound like Mad Men, just fair enough because if this is all true, keep in mind, this is all true, Kidd now makes basketball fans of the city very mad indeed. Kidd doesn't just look bad here, of course. He looks like a bad guy. The rookie coach who has gotten as far ahead of himself after 1 year as the NBA coach that he now thinks he's the king of pro basketball. I don't think he's like that. I really don't, but I'll get to that in a second. And not LeBron James. This after winning 44 games and just one playoff series before getting one game off James and his Heat in the second round. A few days after the NBA holds its draft in the Barclays Center on Atlantic Avenue, Brooklyn, the place where pro basketball was played, much better than it was in Madison Square Garden this season. It comes out that the coach of the Nets, Kidd, is already talking to the Bucks about coaching their team or maybe even running it. Some of the reports even saying that the Nets and the Bucks are discussing composition. No one will be terribly surprised. Basketball fans around here now know how Kidd got into the past season. Lawrence Frank, his top assistant and former coach of the Nets, and how before long Frank has been whispered. It is though as the time that Kidd is one of the truly great point guards in the NBA history, which he is, and one of the great games on-court thinkers, was resentful about the notion that he needed somebody holding his hand. Now, before I go into the situation, this has happened early in the season when the Knicks wasn't doing so well. They were doing so bad that his assistant coach was fired because many people was going to him instead of going to Kid. This is something that you can look up. It is nothing new, but Kid made the move to fire him because he wanted to show that he was in charge. Now, did it hurt the team in the end? Absolutely not. They actually gotten better, and they actually pulled up a 44-win season. But that was the one thing that actually was shadowed throughout the season, that maybe Kid is not winning things, and that people was going to his assistant coach for advice and not him. The move definitely made it clear that Kid is in charge of that team, at least in a coaching level. And need to say that as much as I was scratching my head over the move and wondering what's going on with this move, it actually paid off because they did manage to win. He did a pretty good job for the first year rookie coach. No question about it. Would I like them to go far in the playoffs? Yes, but let's be honest, the Heat is just a better team. Even though they beat them 4 straight, than the Nets did, they're still a better team when push come to shove, and they showed that in this series because, let's be honest, I was lucky they got that one win. But in any case, that was one of the major gripes that has happened. So I wanted to explain that in case you're wondering what the hell Lupico was talking about, but that was one of the major things that that was going on. Who knows now? Who knows how he got it where he is now? Maybe Kid looks at the Nets' current situation with enough players on a team old enough to ride the bus for half price. That is a low blow to that team. I totally think he just did him wrong with that. And with no first-round draft choices and no first-round draft choices for the immediate future, he decided his own future didn't look nearly as bright as it did when he took the job. All right, there's no question that there are players who are past their prime. There are some players who will never be the same as they were when they was dominating Boston or other places before they even reached Boston. Garen Garnett is definitely one of those players who I respect dearly and no doubt will be remembered as one of the great ones in the NBA. He is not the same player as he was. He is a mere shadow of himself. I'm not going to say that he's old enough to ride the bus, though, because he still can contribute when push comes to shove. And I do agree on one thing. The team does need to get younger down the stretch. But right now they can't do anything. Doesn't mean they can't do anything the following year. And from what I understand and how I've been following this, they do have a wiggle room for next year. So they're going to bring everybody back, and they're going to try again. If it works, great. If they make the playoffs, great. If they go far in the playoff, great. If they win a championship, that's even a bigger plus. But if they don't, at least they didn't cost them anything where they made dumb decisions and they have more stuff to work with. The same thing goes with the New York Knicks. The New York Knicks, let's be honest, still have contract on their jacket. They're trying to get rid of contracts. And for what I've been seeing with Jackson, Phil Jackson was doing, he's actually done a good job working with less. He has done some maneuvering on his part. He changed the team without having to burn the wallet or put them further into a situation where they can't make any moves for the next 7 years. So there are some stuff coming, especially for both New York teams. But I don't see it going to happening just overnight. I just don't. So if Kid is thinking that the team is going to be a fail in the future, then I don't know what to say. I really don't. I'll leave that guys for you to comment on. There are lots of moving pieces to a story like this. The different agendas at work. But now this. The Nets aren't likely to get much better with the players they have. I just discussed this. They have general managers in King who have won one playoff series since he has been in charge. They have weird, rich, absentee owners, and they are desperate for attention. The Jets used to be when they were signing a guy like Tim Tebow. Different scenario, but whatever. Understand it doesn't mean that Kid looks good here. If he did make this kind of power grab, or any less than irritant if he tries to Bigfoot the guy who hired him, he is going to get banged around, but he is used to that. It has happened before. and with good reason. There were changes, charges of domestic violence, and when he with the Suns, you better believe that he helped Hawthorne get him to the Nets in the first place. And the whole world knew he wrapped his SUV around a tree. He's talking about all the stuff he did off the field, of course, and this is what happens when news like this spurs. The media will remind you of all the other stuff that you did and how many chances the other person give you. So he's lucky he didn't kill himself or other people in the process. This is why he's being a coach. He is coaching careers. He's beginning to begin his coaching year being suspended, which he was. He takes the weight from that, and for the way things ended with Lawrence Frank, now he is about to get it again, bigger than ever. Maybe the moment Kid talks about somebody in Brooklyn about having more input in the player position or actually wanting to be the boss of basketball, which is not going to happen anytime soon, it gives the King or anybody else with the Nets an opening to make him look this bad and shove him in the direction the Bucks or someone else, and good riddance to him. Kid knows he will get a cut every little slack around here, but he has made a terrible decision in his life. They're all on record, and now it looks as if he made another. He was never a media darling as a player. He sure wasn't one as a coach, and nobody is likely to cut him much slack today. This may be happy to get rid of him as early as today if that's how this plays out. But you have to know that if that is the way it does play out, if he is already on his way out the door, whether he ends up running the show in Milwaukee or not, he may just be as happy to get away from them. This is a very kudos to Lipica on most of the stuff I did agree with. Now, let's get it right down to business. I spend a lot of time between explaining where I was with this video and this, so I might as well just get this out of the way. If this is true, and I made that very clear, if this is true, then you know what? I want him gone. If this is not true, then Jason Kidd needs to publicly, immediately, go on the podium, have a press conference, and explain this article and how this came to be. He needs to explain that. He can't just keep quiet about this. Because as much as I respect him as a player, there have been some things that rub a lot of people the wrong way. And I think he'd be a fine coach. But to me, demanding to have more power when you haven't proven yourself in this league as in terms of coaching concern is a dumb play. It's the most stupidest thing I've ever even heard. You know who deserved that type of power? Phil Jackson. He's proven to be a winning coach. He's won more championships than most of the coaches that are out there right now. Okay? The guy at San Antonio deserved to have free range. How many championships he won? Pat Riley. He's definitely one of the guys who deserve that power. And have done great with it. These guys didn't come in the league after 1 year. They've been there for years, 30 years to be exact, in the records. You came there one season as a coach, and already you think you deserve to own power of ownership or more stay in the team? No, that's something that is earned. That is something that you earn big time. And you don't just earn it out of 1 year or 2 years or 3 years. It may take 10 years. Even more. So yeah, I'm not very happy with this article. I actually bought the Daily News for one of the reasons. And it is just it's mind-boggling that this report is coming out. And I don't hear any updates. If there is an update, I'll probably make it a separate video. I know WFAN is going to be talking about this later on tonight after some of the baseball games that's going on, and as well as some of the World Cup, which I will be talking about next here. I will break this up into two parts, by the way. I'm not going to go anywhere past the 40-minute mark because I do want to get other stories down. So I'll probably keep this as a sporting thing. But let's be realistic here. I mean, this is a bad thing that Brooklyn doesn't need. They don't need that negative press. They're trying to build up something great. And listen, the concerns about the age of the players is the concern of the fans. I get it. All right, this team was built to win a championship now. They brought in a lot of risk by bringing in these veteran players. I get it. All right, but they still, and despite the age factor, they still did a good enough job to win 44 games. When it came to the playoffs, they barely beat Toronto. I say that with a lot of respect, barely. And they ran to a brick wall when it came to LeBron James and the Heat. And to me, if you take anything out of this, anything at all, is that you know what you need to improve for the next season. You know what you need to do differently for the next season. And not just for the players, but also for the coach. There was a lot of stuff that Jason Kidd did that scratched my head. And as a rookie coach, you kind of learn to expect that. All right? But to me, the more thing about this, the more I hear this, and I'm going to hear it a lot, I know some of the people in WFAN will be talking about this to the blue in their face. This will become a news story until Jason Kidd makes it not a news story. He needs to be responsible. He needs to be a man up, and go on that podium and address what Mike Luber has said. I must be honest, not everything Mike Luber that I read here, and I read it right here, not perfectly, but I read it, that I agree with. And I'm not going to call the team a senior citizen team. They're not. They do have some young talent. They was plagued by injuries. That didn't help matters. But to say that this team is so old that they probably can't even go down half court is just unfair. Because before it come to shove, some of them did contribute. They just had a very disappointing playoff. So to me, it's all about one thing. Finding out what you need to do. You know everybody's coming back. We know that. And finding out what this team is really made of that next season. And if they're not going to be any better than what they were, or even worse for that matter, where they don't even make the playoff, then you write that down as a mental note, and you get younger. But also importantly, you get yourself off the cap so you can get players here that can actually perform. Keep some of your draft picks, especially the first rounders. They can be very good. You don't have to be the number one pick, but picking number 3, number 4, number 10, number 11, it's just as good as number 1. You just gotta know what your needs are, and that's something that every team has to do. Now I don't know what Jason Kidd is thinking, that Milwaukee Bucks he has a better chance to win things. That's not going to happen. Not in my opinion. They got a long way to go. If anything, he has a better chance of a winning season with the team he has now than jumping ship. So I'm kind of curious about this. I'm kind of curious if this is under the table. I'm kind of curious who leaked this out to Mike Lupica. I'm kind of curious on how this is going to go. Because this is Sunday. We haven't even touched on the week sports yet. We haven't even hit the surface yet. So trust me, this is going to be something that's very big, that's going to be very up there, and this is going to be New York hot stove talk until Jason Kidd comes up and say, "Hey, look, these are not true. I'm here. I'm going to be here. I'm the coach of here, and that's it." Otherwise, the longer it draws out, the more likely that what Mike Lewis said is true, and that the New Jersey State is going to deal with him or make compensation for him so he can coach the Bucks. And if he does, I want the Brooklyn Nets to boo him every chance they get and beat that team every chance they get. Nothing personal against the Milwaukee fans, nothing personal against the team, but the fact is that Jason Kidd did this move. I don't want to ever again want to hear his presence as one of the great Nets. For New Jersey, if you want to keep that, that's fine. But to me, what he did is just plain stupid, and I can't justify that. There's a link. I'll leave it on to you guys if you want to read it. I'm sure it'll be a fascinating reading for most sports fans. But to me, that is just Unbelievable. But let's move on. I'm gonna keep it as a sports thing in this half, and I'll do a part two and post both of them back to back. But I wanted to talk about the World Cup, and as a person who works in the streets a lot, I'm a person who sees a lot of fans with so many soccer jerseys come out. Hearing the cheers from the bars. Actually seen some games myself, some in English and in Spanish, because the Spanish networks are dominating these World Cups. They got to know every Spanish channel I pretty much turn on to that does have the World Cup that has it, especially Univision. Univision has done a great job with that. And ESPN, to my surprise, had a better rating than the one 4 years ago. Now, a lot of people are saying the reason for this is because at the time it does play into it because it comes on during the afternoon, so you guarantee to catch a game every now and then. And people are into it. The U.S. soccer, everybody's into that. Very, very good to see that. U.S. soccer got lucky. To my opinion, they got through the back door because they won the first one, tied the second one where they should have won that game, and lost 1-0 to Germany, which allowed them to go in because they had a better point differential than Portugal. With that being said, I just my initial feeling on this is I've been a soccer fan for a while. I know this doesn't bother me. I can't wait to New York City Football Club, which I'm also nicknaming them the Strap Hangers. And the only reason why I'm naming it is not an unofficial nickname, but to me they don't have an official nickname. They just call themselves the New York City Football Club, which drives me nuts. It really does. I mean, give me a nickname for Pete's sakes. But there are other teams in the MLS soccer that does the same thing. So, but to me, I got to give them a nickname, and I'm calling them strap hangers for one reason. Anytime your badge represents an old classic 1980s New York subway token, that's what I'm going to call you that. All right. So to me, they're the strap hangers, unless they actually give them an actual nickname that I can actually say. I just kind of wish that they did it, but. The colors are good. The jerseys I like. They picked some good players already, so I can't wait for them to start their season next month. Next year in 2015. So I'm really, really looking forward for that the season to get off the ground. I believe another expansion team is going to be with them. I believe it's either Atlanta that's going to come, as well as Miami, which they're thinking about it. But I pretty much think Atlanta is going to be one of the other teams. So the MLB is expanding, and to be credited, I catch the games a lot on streaming, different matches. The Red Bull, the one I recently have finished watching on a new channel where the New York Cosmos is playing in the Northeastern Division. I actually liked the match. It was New York Red Bull versus them versus the Cosmos. It was very interesting. Cosmos actually beat New York Red Bulls, so there's actually tradition there. And a lot of people say there's maybe a rivalry for years to come. Let's see. But soccer has been something that is catching on again. It's slowly catching on. It will never take over the major sports, of course, but to their own right, I don't think they need to. Let them develop slowly. Let them build up. In that way, they don't have to feel pressured and let the fans decide. They got a good fan base in MLS. I was worried about how long they was going to last, because they didn't feel like they was going to be here long, but they started getting better. They started improving. They started getting more TV deals, and to me, they're doing just fine. They do got a fan base. Trust me when I say that. It's mostly Spanish, but they also have English fan base as well. And nothing's proven how soccer has evolved than this year's World Cup. I'm not rooting for the United States, and that's long because I never was introduced to soccer for the United States. I was introduced to the United States from documentaries from Brazil, how Brazil was, the soccer town. I was fascinated how almost 100,000 fans was in the stands of this soccer game. I said, really, this really must be big in other countries. And that's how I became a Brazilian fan when it comes to the World Cup play. But I still root for the United States. But if it comes down to the United States and Brazil, I definitely will. It's my country, USA. But I was always a fan of Brazil soccer until the MLS came in. I could actually watch soccer here. But it has been big. And to me, when I start work around 7 o'clock, by 8 o'clock, you see these guys walking around with uniforms with either USA, Chile, Hungary. You have people who had the uniform of Portugal. It was big. It was huge, and the bars were filled. So there's a lot of people really watching it. And I tell you right now, the bars are eating it up, and especially Manhattan, they're eating it up. There's not a single person. I've met a single bar with multiple television where there's like two or three of those with the World Cup on their screen. So it has become big. Um, there was an article in the that I think Yahoo have done, which was connected to the Associated Press, and they saying how why soccer will never be a big sport in this country. And I gotta say again, I don't think it needs to be a big sport in this country, but it damn well will have its fan base. It will have people going there. There are people who said that hockey will never be a big part of this sport in this country, but hockey doesn't need to overtake the other sports. Yeah, it was a time where hockey was struggling to get TV ads, but over the while, it has gotten more and more interesting. There are more diverse people playing it now, and also the event, more people actually are watching it now than ever before. Will it ever be like the NBA or Major League Baseball or football? Probably not. But you know what? With the fan base they do have, and they do have a lot of fan base, especially in New York, which people don't ever think of New York being a big hockey town, which it really is. There are huge, loyal, diehard Ranger fans. I should know I'm one of them, and they love their Rangers. The same thing with the Islanders fans. They love they love the Islanders. So this is a hockey town. There are many cities or are starting to become hockey towns after they learn the rules of the game and actually get themselves established. But that takes time. I never thought Carolina would have a hockey team. I took at Carolina to be nothing more than a college basketball town. I don't never see the Carolinas, North or South, to be a pro hockey city, and they're not. But there are people going to games. There are people learning about the games, and they're enjoying it for what it's worth. They won a championship for Pete's sakes. So I just think that the idea that the World Cup won't make a difference, I don't think they need to in the United States. Look, we know the Premier League is much more better than the MLS. They got a lot of talent in the English Premier League. There's no question about it. English Premier League fan base is off the roof compared to the United States fan base. We understand that. We understand that soccer did have its time in the sun, especially with the Cosmos being in the old or Northeastern Soccer League, I believe they call it. They was drawing anywhere between 70 to 80,000 fans in Giant Stadium, and have actually won a lot of championships as well before the league finally folds up. I understand that too. But soccer never went away in this country. It just was never, and I go by what Joe Domingo from WFAN said, it was never fully established. Baseball was established for one major reason. They've been around since the 1800s. That game was still in the developmental stage. I remember reading a history that the New York Knickerbockers, which played in New Jersey, surprisingly, where Lincoln actually saw the first pitch. That's how far baseball has gone. So when you hear the Americans say the American pastime, that's why. Baseball is already integrated into this country and beyond. So, and also the same thing. Basketball is truly the only true American sport that we got. It was done by some professor, cut a little hole in around the basket, put it on top, and then we got a basketball game from there. And that has been established, and it took a while to be established, by the way, until the late days when we had great players, legendary players, who helped put a face on the NBA. And that's the big key. They put a face on the NBA. Okay? Football, forget about it. Football was around way longer than the Super Bowl itself. We had two league footballs. They finally merged together. And despite how every league tried to came out to take the NFL, it never really worked. And the NFL works well because it is like a religious sport. Every Sunday, the guys have to watch their favorite team come on. It is one of the highest rated television shows. And that's not even including the Super Bowl, which gets how many ratings per Super Bowl and how many commercial deals they have. They're a well-established team. Hockey, it took time. I'm not going to sit there and say they was a well-established hockey team, and they've been around a lot longer, just as long as the baseballs and the hockey of the world. I mean, the history is ridiculous, and the history that I didn't know about, and thanks to a fellow Mag Expression, who is a great historian. of this type of history. Let's talk about hockey has really filled in, and this is how long, how rich of the history, how much this history has actually been forgotten about about hockey, how it integrated, and how the NHL started getting integrated. But yes, it took time. It didn't have the TV deals that it used to have. They pretty much was grounded by some of the commercials between beer and TV and their own merchandise that was almost impossible to get integrated. But over a while, since the season expanded and it went beyond the market that they have, they actually have stepped up, and they have their own fan base and they have their own ways, and they pretty much sell themselves very good. So soccer, what I'm trying to say is that soccer, as much as people want to say it would never take over the sport, and I agree, it's not going to take over baseball, it's not going to take over basketball, it's not going to take over football, but it can be something of its own. The World Cup really won my interest like almost 20 years ago, when the United States, when they believed they played at Giant Stadium. And I was watching the games, and I was really into the games. No sooner than that, I think 2 years later, people, if I'm wrong, correct me on that, I believe 2 years later, NLS came involved. And at first, I wasn't too sure how I was going to embrace it. But when I started hearing that they were getting fans averaging 20, 30, even 50,000, I said maybe that's worth it. Never really fully embraced the New York, New Jersey MetroStars as I wanted to, because they played in New Jersey. It was almost hard to get there. And to me, I have a problem with teams calling themselves New York and New Jersey when it's clear to where they're playing at. And that's even including the Jets and Giants. Even though I'm a fan of the Jets, I don't really reckon. I call them the football Jets more than if I call them the New York Jets. But that's just my opinion on that. But again, the World Cup was my real true taste of what soccer is like. And believe me when I say it, the fans are amazing. They really are dedicated fans. They really watch their game, and you cannot ever dare want to insult their team on a bar. There's so many stories about men being chased out of the bar because they insulted the game. It will leave you just in awe. But they are dedicated fans. I say, wow, maybe I need to look at this. And when I really started watching soccer, I noticed, at first I wasn't really getting into it, but as I understand the rules more and as I understand the game more, I really am pumped up. And here's the thing about soccer. Out of all the sports, this is actually the shortest thing. You'd be thinking, 90 minutes is too long. It actually goes by kind of quick. It made me wonder why we got ties in the first place. I mean, it does go by kind of quick. And that's the thing that I think people don't realize, that when they play soccer, they don't stop the clock. It just keeps going, and that's the whole thing. They keep going and keep going. They stop the clock when there's an emergency situation, like a serious injury, but they're not stopping that clock. And you really get the feeling, you really get to hear the crowd cheering. They really are into this sport, and to me, I really got into it myself, and I love this World Cup. This World Cup is really really got a lot of people in. This has been the best World Cup they had in a long time, and that's been TV ratings. And I do believe the time has really paid off for it. It really does. That's not to say everybody enjoys it. There were people who wrote columns saying they just understand it, they just don't get it. They don't understand why that the United States looked at their loss as a victory. Maybe because they just went in the playoff and they knew they was going to go in. I understand that part, but there's a lot of people who just won't get it and probably never will get it. They probably would never will understand the passion, the love that other worlds from other countries have. And that's largely because, again, it was never really fully integrated here. And look, they're still coming along. And my feeling is you don't have to be a fan of soccer. You don't like it, that's fine. But to me, I enjoy it. I really do. I enjoy watching on television. And I watch multiple games just to get a feel for a lot of things. And thanks to the MLS, who's on YouTube, and the one station, the new One World Sports, who's not only does U.S. basketball, soccer here, but does cricket. I don't know what the other rugby. I watch rugby game. I can never get over that. Rugby, in case it's football with no rules, I like to call it. So they do other sports there. I might take a look at cricket. Cricket looks interesting, but to me, it is becoming more and more publicized in terms of TV ratings and as well as cable. And fans alone are really going to this. The fans are very, very dedicated. And to me, as long as you have fans going to these games, as long as the MLS continue to grow, soccer's going to be here to stay. They may never take the top leagues which I don't think is going to happen. But they will have a fan base where I don't think they really should. Well, don't have to, no care to do. Just build your fan base. Those are the fans that are going to support you. You don't need to challenge the whole league, and that's my thing. Don't worry about challenge the whole league. Just continue building around there, and use the World Cup to remind people why people actually love this sport. Before I go on, because I want to cut it off right here, and then I will continue with part two. I am a little bit surprised that the MLS didn't shut operations for at least a month. I think that's probably what it is, because it's going to take a long time before we decide champion. It's probably going to run all the way through July. But I was a little surprised because I actually didn't keep up with the MLS, and I'm probably sure that a lot of people who are fans of the MLS did the same thing. And I'm like, wait, they're still playing? Because the first thing came to my mind, because this is pretty much the NHL does this a lot with their World Cup challenge. They actually stop play for a few weeks and then come back. The MLS didn't do that. So when I was surprised to see that Red Bull won a game, I'm like, wait, they're still playing? I mean, they're not taking is they taking a day off or anything else? No, I guess they're still playing, but I don't think people really care about the MLS right now. And I think if out of all the teams, maybe they would do it in the future, but out of all the leagues that deserve to actually shut down for a while, whether their players are on their favorite teams or not, should be MLS. Because let's be honest, no one's paying attention to the MLS right now. That's the only real backdrop about that being in the midst of a World Cup. When the World Cup plays, nobody's paying attention to any of the leagues. To them, they're just a lot of people, including those who follow, or don't even follow the soccer, are paying very close attention to the World Cup. It is that big. So to have the MLS or even the English Premier League open, I don't know if the Premier League actually, I think they just finished their season and they're about to start a new one soon. They don't take too many vacations, say some guys, they don't. But to take, for them to actually operate while the World Cup is open, I think that's a bad move. I really do, because nobody's watching your games. And those are real diehard fans. They're real diehard. But TV rating wise, you know where it's going. It's not going to go to MLS. It's going to go towards the World Cup. That's just me. I was actually shocked that it was still running, because the moment the World Cup started, I just stopped watching it because I want to pay attention to what's going on in the World Cup, and there was a lot to pay attention on. But when I realized it was still going, I'm like, whoa, I thought you guys was done for a month. But not the case. So, all right, well, if they still get the fan base, look at the viewer screen, fine. But I just think they should have just stopped shop, because, again, if you go into New York and you see how these guys walk around, it is clear that everybody is focusing on one thing, and that is the soccer. And that is not the soccer from the MLS. That's it. That's all for now. I'm sorry I didn't talk about that incident that got this guy suspended. I almost forgot about that. How I didn't report this. There was a soccer player, I believe. I don't even remember the country now, but he was suspended for a few months plus 9 games for a biting incident that he did. He bit somebody in the shoulder. Turns out this is not the first incident he had. And some players were sent home because they wasn't getting paid. Now, I don't know. That was the first time I heard about this. I don't know what the rules of FEMA. FEMA's been on a lot of controversy, by the way, guys, with a lot of stuff they have done with the implement domain in Brazil, through corruption, bribery. There's been a lot of stuff with the FEMA. So these guys are not exactly the most innocent bodies to actually trust with that. But besides that, there was a lot of stuff going on about the promised pay. They didn't get promised pay. And that led to result into them leaving, whether it was on their own or whether it was from the league. It's a different story. But I always thought that when you play these kind of games, you're playing it for country. You're not really playing it for any type of payday. I know Olympics don't get paid for that, but they know that coming in. So if they was promised one thing and then all of a sudden that's not the case, I can see why they can get mad. I can see that. I may talk about it a little bit more in a separate video, but yeah, that's something I always scratch my head. But that's pretty much it, guys. End of part 1. And I will continue on with part 2, where the other news will be strictly down from movies and music. Until then, guys, I see you in the other half.